Greetings and blessings to all. My name is Jesse Golding, and I want to welcome you to the 2020 podcast. This is our very first episode. First, let me say that I love my wife, Corey, and my 4 children, Kanya, Zeus, Elijah, and Isaac. And with hope in the future of our family and for fathers and sons everywhere, I believe that we can evolve and seek justice through public dialogue. In the following months, we will examine many of the subjects that are important to all of us. Today, our subject is fathers and sons. And the content of our first episode consists in an open letter to the Marin County District Attorney, which I will now read. Dear Lori E. Frugali, District Attorney, and Namita A. Patel, Deputy District Attorney, thank you for your kind letter requesting my presence at your office. And this is my kind letter in return, informing you that you are in violation of my constitutional rights and my Miranda rights by not informing me of the charges to be levied against me, nor of my right to be represented by counsel. In your letter, you reference a citation, yet I have not been served with a citation. Although I am choosing not to appear in person, I send this letter affirming my rights and my reasons for believing that you are acting outside of the law. I think it is reprehensible for you to send me such a letter, as I have done nothing wrong. I am an upstanding citizen of the United States and of the state of California, and I do not wish to be persecuted by your office or any other. And so I am demanding that you immediately cease and desist any and all blackmail, slander, defamation, intimidation, coercion, and harassment of me and my family and my residents, and demand that you use my taxpayer dollars to do your job as prosecutors of crimes, not for the purpose of persecuting fathers and dividing them from their sons. For the better part of a year, I have been subjected to a political witch hunt by the family court system in Marin County, and I am filing a civil rights lawsuit against the county for violating my civil, constitutional, and human rights. If you do not immediately cease your immoral, unethical, and illegal harassment of me and my family, I will add your names to the lawsuit. I am well aware that the family court in Marin County has been investigated and cited twice by the state, and perhaps it is time that the state stepped in altogether and fired the judges and the administration of the family court system of Marin County before they commit any more abuses of power and crimes against the people of this county. Below, I will provide you with enough background information and details of my case so that you understand why I am so committed to affirming my human rights and why I am taking the tone that I am. All of this is being made public so that others who have been similarly mistreated can gain solace in knowing that they are not alone, and perhaps they can pursue a class action lawsuit on behalf of fathers and sons everywhere. The first thing to say is that I love my wife, Corey, and would never do anything to harm her in any way. I have always wished for her happiness and provided for her well-being to the best of my ability. I do not consider myself to be in conflict with her. On the contrary, she is engaged in a one-sided war against me, one that is supported by her foster parents, Mark and Robin, and by the extreme prejudice in our society against fatherhood that has now become the norm. I absolutely refuse to participate in that war. I believe in peace and love and reconciliation. Throughout this letter, I will refer to Corey as my wife, for I do not believe that the divorce proceedings were completed within the law. I am filing an appeal of the whole matter and appealing the DVRO that was combined with the divorce proceedings in an awkward and highly prejudicial manner. For those of you who do not know, DVRO means Domestic Violence Restraining Order. Although I am appealing the DVRO, this does not mean that I want to have any kind of direct communication with my wife or open contact with her at this time. But I do believe that it is vital that we meet on a regular basis and sit at the same table, perhaps with a therapist, in order to discuss the disastrous state of our children's lives and what we can do about it together. If upon appeal the DVRO is thrown out as unlawful, and I believe that it will be, I will continue to maintain distance from Corey for 3 reasons. 1, I want her to feel comfortable and at peace. 2, I do not feel comfortable around her because she has been dishonest, threatening, and unjust towards me. And 3, I cannot trust that anything she says is true or that she will not try to entrap me as she has before. If it were possible for us to sit down around the same table with witnesses and begin to make a plan for the future of our family, that would be great. However, I do not believe that sending text messages back and forth, as has been proposed, is helpful in any way, and I am still refusing to do that. I am not a teenager, and I do not consider texting to be a form of dialogue. It is serial monologue and evades real communication of the kind that is necessary to the future of our family. During the proceedings before the family court, I was reprimanded for using kind and gentle words in order to say nothing to Corey. Even as the lives of our children fell apart, I was forbidden to speak. Then I was ordered to communicate through a texting program called Our Family Wizard, which I rightly pointed out is misnamed, being neither ours or about family, and certainly not a magical being. As part of more than 50 pages of written testimony I submitted to the court, I listed many reasons why I was refusing to use OFW to communicate with Corey, including informing the court that I would not communicate with Corey as part of a master-slave relationship, and that until I had been granted equal rights, I considered that to be the state of affairs, and would not speak to her at all. Far from addressing my specific reasons for not using the program, the judge just repeated the order for me to download this software onto my phone and use it to text back and forth with Corey. And I still refuse, for that is an unconstitutional order, which is a gross violation of my First Amendment rights, as it constitutes compelled speech, which is not just illegal in the United States, but throughout the entire Western world. There has never been a law compelling one person to speak to another or describing the manner in which they must speak, except as a witness to a crime. So no, I am not interested in having any communication with Corey at all. About 14 months ago, having been shamed and blackmailed and bribed with a new car by our abusive foster parents, my wife Corey told me that she was done with our relationship. And she said this upon returning from a 10-day trip to see those weird people, one in which she had literally kidnapped my children out of state without my permission, and I was not permitted any communication with them the entire time. For the following 3 weeks, she was cold to me and refused to talk about our lives. Rather than create some kind of equitable arrangement with me, she disappeared with our 3 young children one night, literally dragging them to some stranger's house for the night, and proceeded to steal all of our family's wealth and spend it on an apartment for her and our children, leaving me no way to pay the rent, no way to move, no way to spend time with our children, no way to move forward with my life. She literally left me to starve. And what was my reaction to being so mistreated? Keep in mind that I was the stay-at-home parent, caring for her and our children in support of her career that I helped her build, and that I was suddenly left penniless with no family. First, I helped Corey move some of her things to her new apartment and gave her many other things that she needed. And then I got a job as a painter and drove thousands of miles in 1 month to see my kids for a half hour or so after work at a library or sitting in my car. Corey worked as a piano teacher every afternoon and evening, often not returning home until 8:30 or 9 at night. There was no dinner plan, no consistent bedtime, and no supervision of any kind. My children were dumped at libraries to play video games for hours or abandoned at her apartment. So I asked Corey if I could start making them dinner at her place and put the children to bed. I received that permission, but later she said that she never gave me permission to be there. In court, I produced massive amounts of evidence that she was lying, which the court ignored. Throughout the latter part of last fall, Corey and I maintained our family life, spending dozens of days together as a family, and had some good times, laughter, and even some level of closeness as a couple, going out, the two of us, on a few dates. We did not kiss or make love, but neither were we the strangers that we have become since January. We spent Halloween, Thanksgiving, birthdays, and Christmas together. We went to the movies and the beach and did many other things. It was very good for our children to see us together and to see the gentleness and generosity with which I treated their mother. I cooked for her, took her out, gave her flowers, wrote her love notes, told her that I loved her, and we embraced goodnight many times as dear close friends, and it was obvious that she still loved me. Our boys, seeing all of this, had some faith in the future. However, it was not to last, and that faith is now broken. I was not prepared for what came next. I did not expect the cruelty and persecution that Corey unleashed upon my life. First, she tried to get my child's friend's mom to serve me with divorce papers. This occurred in front of my 8-year-old son. Then Corey refused to pay her share of our mutual bills or help move our things from our house so that I could move. Then she called the police and told them all kinds of lies, none of which were ever proved. Absolutely none of what she wrote in the original TRO was shown to be the truth. On the stand, Corey admitted that she was not afraid of me and I was not threatening or violent, but perjured herself with regard to our eldest boy's involvement in her plans to leave. It was a mess. Having lived with Corey for some 15 years, I was well aware that she was a liar and a con artist, but I was altogether unprepared for the fact that our judge would also be a liar and a con artist. Rather than anything resembling an even-handed approach to the law, what she delivered was an all-out ideological attack upon me as a father, a husband, and a man, eventually concluding that because I continued to say that I loved Corey, I was guilty of, quote, disturbing the peace, and that was to be considered, quote, violence, and therefore I was entitled to less rights, less time with our children, less control over their lives, and that I was to be, quote, supervised. In what kind of weird, twisted, incapable mind are acts of peace, such as saying love, considered to be unpeaceful? This was not merely judicial error, but an all-out assault upon me as a father and upon the health and well-being of our 3 young boys, and is reflected in their deteriorating physical and emotional health and extremely terrible performance in school since that time. I am suing the county for damages. I am suing them for actively destroying my family for profit as part of a multi-billion-dollar industry that I refer to as the divorce industrial complex. My boys have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the right to a future, and the right to a father and for their father to be free to prosper and to be free from undue persecution. And as the county has clearly been in violation of the human rights of my children and I, they will be held responsible. I believe that the judge in our case, one Sheila Lichtblau, should be fired, disbarred, jailed, and possibly deported. Why should she have citizenship in America if she does not believe in equality? I know that you are latecomers to this case, but hopefully you will recognize that your office can be of no use here, and that can only make an already bad situation worse, and that your time is better spent elsewhere. If you seek to find me as part of your persecution, I will not pay the fine. If you seek to impose any more restrictions upon me, you should be prepared to be sued for damages, including by my sons, who will file a separate lawsuit against you for interfering with their human right to a father. And if you jail me, I will consider myself to be a political prisoner, and I will go on a hunger strike. I will eat nothing in your jails. All of our Lakota ceremonies involve fasting. My longest fast was a 3-week water fast. I am prepared to fast until you either release me or I die. The health and well-being of my boys are worth any sacrifice. I have not seen any sign that any of the women involved in this case have the remotest idea what it means to be a man or a boy or to need a father. Twice as much motherhood does not make up for lack of fatherhood. The judge was a woman, Corey, a woman, her lawyer, a woman, her support network, women, Child and Family Services, women, and you both are women. I have seen zero acknowledgement from any of you that boys need fathers, and not as a second thought or occasional visitor, but in their daily lives. Yet as a scholar, I could find 10,000 books and articles to back up my claim. Children of divorce, and especially boys without fathers, are worse off by every metric and in every conceivable way. They have twice the rates of suicide, school dropouts, and health emergencies. They are 5 times as likely to live in poverty as adults. A great many of them end up in prison, hospitals, or dead. Your county, through its political persecution of me for being a husband, a father, and just a man, has already inflicted immeasurable damage upon my sons. My son Elijah has a lot of health problems. He is 2 months into his 6th grade year and has turned in none of his schoolwork in any of his classes. I mean, he has turned in exactly 0 and was already behind. One could consider that he has a 3rd grade education and is ready to drop out altogether. When I told the judge 6 months ago that I wanted to work with Elijah after school each day, as his mother was never home, she refused and would rather see him destroyed than helped by his father. His will is broken, and the principal reason is division from his father. And yet the court pretended that I was a stalker for leaving love notes to the woman who bore me 3 sons and who I took care of for 15 years, and did not bat an eye on her actions of kidnapping our children and then abandoning them all afternoon and evening with no dinner plan and no consistent bedtime, and trying to starve me, stealing all of the resources that we both depended on to survive. I know that I am not the only father and husband to be persecuted in this way. There are tens of millions of us who have had their money and property, families and homes and futures stolen from them on the slimmest of pretexts in the past 50 years. The blueprint is usually the same and involves victim status posturing. If you can claim to be a victim, you can steal everything. And yes, in every human relationship, people make mistakes. I am human, and I have made lots of mistakes, but none of them involved violence of any kind. In the family court system across America, which upon close examination appears to be nothing more than a kangaroo court for destroying families, only the mistakes of men are evaluated, and the remedies are not proportional and destroy the lives of everyone involved, especially the children. In America, mothers get 85% of the custody fathers 15%, and the children suffer alienation and loss. In my own case, I am proud of the love and kindness that I have shown my wife in the face of her treachery. For not only have I never committed an act of violence against her, I have never committed any act of violence against anyone ever. Unless, of course, you consider flowers to be violent. I have never been convicted by a jury of my peers of any crime or misdemeanor. I do not even have a DUI. I am a completely innocent man. In court, I was not even accused of hitting my wife or children or of doing drugs or neglecting my children or anything. I was accused of being there, of showing up when my children needed me, of being a father, of trying to keep my family together with kind and gentle words. And I would do the exact same thing again because I did what I was supposed to do, with words of love. So yes, I am filing a civil rights lawsuit against the County of Marin, and I expect to win. And I will use the money received to better the lives of my children and to start a nonprofit foundation to support fathers and sons. Our boys are still abandoned every day. When they are with Corey, they eat a high-carb diet with not enough protein, no fresh fruit, almost no vegetables, and very little variety. They are doing terrible in school. I have been meeting with Elijah's teachers and I'm working on getting him an IEP. But they all need me in their lives more. They are suffering from loneliness and alienation, as I am as well. Corey has paid me no child support despite making 3 times as much as me. There are a great many other details in this case that are relevant, and perhaps we will examine them in the future. Not all of them are of a juridical nature, but still require critical scrutiny. I believe that the family court in Marin has about as much legitimacy as the court that persecuted Galileo for believing that the sun was the center of the universe. My sons are the center of my universe, and I theirs, and to break that connection between fathers and sons is a form of psychic murder that our society has yet to grapple with. Corey poisoned the mind of my daughter against me, and we have not talked in more than a year. I do not know how that will ever work out for her. And Corey divided me from my eldest boy, involving him in our conflict. He will not talk to me, or even tell his therapist why, or of the lies that she made him tell to me. My friends see him walking around town by himself, his head down, and his brothers say that he never does anything but stare at his phone. I do not know how this works out for my children, or in the end, how it works out for Corey. She is living with a tremendous amount of guilt and shame and struggling to parent alone, to prove to herself that she can do it. And she can't. She is failing. We should be working together, and the actions of the courts and the lawyers and her foster parents have all been wrong for all of us. I get to see my other 2 children 25% of the time. My youngest boy, who is 9, looks up at me and says that I am his favorite person in all of the world, and that I am the greatest papa. And Elijah, who is 11, constantly tells me that he loves me and misses me, and his dream is that his mother will reunite with his father. And because the court engaged in political persecution instead of wise counsel, his mother and father are not allowed to be in the same room, ever. There can be no reconciliation, no evolution, no teamwork, no real communication. Elijah did not sleep for the first 48 hours after his mother kidnapped him away from me, and was incredibly traumatized, and still is. Now, I am not saying that Elijah does not love his mother. She is a wonderful woman in many ways, and I still love her. What I am saying is that for Elijah, I am his wings and his will and his word and his wisdom. Good night, and remember to say, I love you.